Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk today about the expansion to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, also known as ARPA. So there's been some enhancements that have been made. Today will be a fairly quick webinar. We'll keep it very, very direct for you guys. And I'd like to introduce Rosemary, who's popping on now.
Hi, everybody. Oh, it's good to see everybody here. We've been getting a lot of questions about this, and they've made a lot of changes, so it's definitely useful to go over.
All right. Are you able to start video? Do you have your video?
It's saying that the host has stopped it.
Oh, I'm sorry. So you guys are just
okay.
going to be stuck with me. So Rosemary is a member of our client success team here at Brabo. She did quite a bit of research here on this plan and she actually put together this PowerPoint and going to walk you through what it means for your business.
Okay. So the American Rescue Plan Act is basically an extension of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which was an act of Congress that was written last year meant to combat the economic impacts of COVID-19. It was in effect from April 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. And what it did was it provided 80 hours of emergency paid sick leave for employees full-time, or if they're part-time, the average hours over a 2-week period of time. It also provided emergency family medical leave, which was 12 weeks of leave. During the FFCRA, the first 2 weeks was unpaid and then paid at 2/3 the employee's rate for employers with fewer than 500 employees. So the qualifying reasons for claiming emergency paid sick leave in FFCRA were being subject to quarantine by healthcare provider or government order, seeking a COVID-19 diagnosis, or caring for an individual subject to quarantine, or caring for a child whose daycare or school has closed due to COVID-19. And employers then would receive a reduced liability for total earnings of employees getting sick leave. For those of you that have already experienced it, you have seen the invoices that ADP will send out showing you how that liability was lowered. And if you're in Paylocity, then that gets updated in real time.
Awesome. So how was the FFCRA extended into 2021? So at the end of this year, President Trump signed the Consolidated Appropriations Act, the CAA, which extended the payroll tax credits to employers who voluntarily decided they wanted to continue with this program. And on March 11th, 2021, President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan, which extends the federal payroll tax credit through the end of September of this year, and it expanded the family medical leave eligibility. The program does continue to be a voluntary program for employers that have fewer than 500 employees. So you could choose to not offer this. Personally, I feel that it makes a lot of sense to offer it. I think it's a great way to keep workplaces safe. If the only way that somebody can get paid is coming into work sick, I just think given the current climate, it's just a high risk. It can be bad press. I think taking advantage of this is a great thing to consider doing. You're also getting reimbursed for the pay that goes to the people that are not able to make it to work. So that is great. We do also understand that recruiting and employment right now is harder than it's ever been. And it's very, very difficult to schedule your business and have people available to work. And this does make that more difficult. But I do think that it improves the safety of the workplace. So a couple of considerations there when deciding whether you're going to voluntarily offer this or not. Can you give us an intro to the American Rescue Plan Act, Rosemary?
Of course. So the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, was written to address COVID-19's continuing presence through 2021. It includes, we're talking about the tax credits here, but included other things like stimulus payments, childcare subsidies, expanded health insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But with new cases of COVID-19 happening every day, ARPA includes the reset of the paid sick leave hours and emergency family medical leave guidelines. So what happens now is your employees are now eligible for another 80 hours of paid sick leave. And if they haven't used it, then it doesn't carry over. So everyone is just back at 80 hours. And this ensures employees don't have to worry about their paycheck while are sick.
Rosemary, do you know when the reset happened? Was it April 1st?
Yes, it was April 1st.
All right, so it says right here on your slide. So ARPA resets the 80-hour limit for paid sick leave starting on April 1st. This means that if an employee previously had used their paid sick leave, they are now eligible for another 80 hours at the full pay rate, up to a maximum of $511 a day per employee if they're quarantined or have other symptoms. For any other reason, they are paid 2/3 their rate for a maximum of $200 a day per employee. And what that's talking about is if there's challenges related to childcare, so if a daycare had to close down because of an exposure or an outbreak, they would be able to then miss work due to not being able to get childcare due to the pandemic. So some of the, you can take us through the next 3 reasons for paid sick leave. So the 3 that were added. Rosemary?
Yes, so the 3 additional qualifying reasons for paid sick leave are now obtaining a COVID-19 vaccine, recovering from an illness, condition, or disability related to the COVID-19 vaccine, or awaiting test results if an employee was exposed or requested to get tested by the employer. And I just wanted to go back to the first point about whether it's full rate of pay or 2/3. What's an easy way to think of it is if they're having symptoms or getting vaccinated, then you would pay them their full rate. If they don't have symptoms or they're not getting vaccinated, then you would pay them 2/3 the regular rate. And we'll go through this more in depth ahead. But that's just a good way of thinking of it.
Awesome. And for anybody that has questions during this webinar, please make sure you just put them in the Q&A section. Alex just mentioned that in the chat area. Just add your questions to the Q&A and we'll do our best to get to them at the end. All right, so how does ARPA change the FFCRA? Rosemary?
So the rescue plan eliminates the requirement that the first 2 weeks of family medical leave be unpaid. So previously, before the 1st of April this year, if an employee was taking emergency family medical leave, not emergency paid sick leave, there is a difference. The FFCRA required that the first 2 weeks be unpaid. That has gone away. So now everything is paid, and it increases the total cap from $10,000 to $12,000. For emergency family medical leave, that keeps the maximum tax credit equal to 2/3 the employee's regular rate of pay for $200 per day per employee. Emergency family medical leave can be used for any qualifying reason found for emergency paid sick leave. Previously, under the FFCRA, you could only take emergency family medical leave if you were caring for a child whose daycare or school was closed due to COVID-19. Now they could take emergency family medical leave for any of the qualifying reasons we talked about earlier. This means if an employee needs to take leave beyond the 10 days or 80 hours, they may take up to 12 additional weeks for a total of 14 weeks paid ARPA leave.
Interesting. And that is paid at the reduced amount?
Yes, they would receive the tax liability for this as well.
All right, interesting. So that's something new. ARPA prohibits employers, if they are voluntarily opting in, from discriminating in favor of highly paid employees, full-time employees, or on the basis of tenure. So if you are offering this program and benefit, you have to offer it across the board. You can't discriminate. Mm-hmm. Let's do a quick comparison of the FFCRA then versus ARPA now. So the FFCRA, it was 80 hours paid sick leave. That's been reset, but it did not carry over if it wasn't previously used. FFCRA was mandatory until the end of December in 2020. Now it's voluntary. Qualifying reasons were getting a diagnosis, if you were subject to a quarantine, if you were carrying somebody subject to quarantine, or if you were caring for a child whose school was closed. There's 3 new reasons, which are getting vaccinated, recovering from the vaccination, and awaiting test results. Family medical leave is only used for caring for a child whose school was closed. Now family medical leave can be used for any reason under paid sick leave. So if they had already used 80 hours, they could continue to use up to the 12 weeks. And the first 2 weeks of family leave was unpaid, and now it's paid. And it was a $10,000 cap on the family leave. It's been increased proportionately by the $1,000 a week to meet those requirements. What are the rates for qualifying under paid sick leave? So you can just see right here, obtaining a diagnosis is a full rate. Subject to quarantine, full rate. Caring for someone else, 2/3, up to $200 a day. Caring for a child whose school is closed, 2/3. Getting vaccinated, full rate. Recovering from the vaccine, full rate. And awaiting test results, full rate.
Kevin, may I jump in for a
Of
second?
course, please.
So this is, I just wanted to emphasize that this is for paid sick leave only. Everything under emergency paid medical leave is the 2/3 the rate. So if they're taking any paid sick time off for the first 80 hours, then this is what you would go by. And then if they're taking additional time off other than the 80 hours for the emergency paid family medical leave, then that's all 2/3 the rate. And definitely let me know if you have questions about that. I know that could be a little confusing.
Awesome. What are the incentives for employers? So at the end of this year, employers are no longer required to pay paid sick leave. Voluntarily opting in to paid sick leave encourages employees to take care of their health, to get vaccinated, and it slows the spread of COVID-19 due to exposure. ARPA, as it's written, does not address whether employers may choose to extend paid leave, but not the family medical leave. If employers are able to choose the extended paid leave only, they would not be able to pick and choose qualifying reasons for leave or make any other changes. How's it realized on ADP Run? So for clients that we have on ADP Run, paid sick leave hours are added under the AREE pay, which is AR FMLA expansion, AR family care pay column on the payroll grid. We can help you set that up if you need any help. If the employee worked regular hours during the same period, a new line item is added. If they are tipped employees, you enter the dollar amount they averaged, including tips, over a 2-week period from the last 6 months for our restaurants. Employers will then, once you process your payroll, a couple hours later, you'll get an invoice from us that just shows that your tax liability was reduced to compensate for the employee's wages. And on Paylocity, do you want to tell us how it's realized on Paylocity, Rosemary?
Of course, yeah. So paid sick leave hours are added under the detail page for the employee claiming them. And then you enter in the hours. So in ADP, a lot of the times you enter in the dollar amount. In Paylocity, you would enter in the hours. And if they worked regular hours during the same period, then you add a new line item. Attention to detail in Paylocity is key. You would want to double check that their rate is coming through in the payroll setup. And then for the reporting, the tax credit is shown on the payroll summary no billing report, and that's updated in real time. And then if you want to see like the individual employee who claimed the hours, that is found in the payroll register report.
Excellent. And that is our quick webinar on ARPA. So I will check and see. It looks like there's very, very few questions. All right, one second. I hope you guys found this informative. It was really just meant to get you guys up to speed. Does this apply to employers of companies that do not offer paid sick leave? Yes, it absolutely does. It is available to all employers. And in fact, owners are also eligible. So if you are the owner of an S Corp and you are on your own payroll and you need to get tested for COVID, or if you have symptoms, just like your employees can get a tax credit for their pay, you can also do the same for yourself as a business owner. So I think it's a great benefit personally. I can also appreciate people's scheduling troubles and things like that. It's just such a difficult time, and this allows for you to give people time off without it costing your business money directly. Does anybody else have any questions? So we have another one. So we didn't know about FFCRA until recently. Can we go back and amend 2020 941s to claim FFCRA for paid sick leave to employees in 2020? I think that you would have to pay necessary amendment fees in order, if we're the ones handling amending that, which I think depending on the platform could be a few $100s per quarter. But the big thing to realize is that when you're going back to amend something, you better have a great explanation for it. I would not be shooting from the hip and just kind of putting in numbers that are not directly tied to leave. I would make very sure that you have documentation for the leave that was requested and the reason for as much as you can substantiate, but it may be absolutely worth going back in time and checking. One other thing to consider is when you're seeking the employee retention credit, you cannot seek credit on any hours that were compensated on this program. So just for anybody that's doing the ERC, just keep that in mind before you calculate your credit. Pretty straightforward stuff. I know that this is an old topic, just with some updates. So we'll be here if you guys need us. I hope you found this informative. For the restaurant clients, make sure you check out the SBA's website. Restaurant Recovery Program is coming in right now to help you guys fight through the rest of the pandemic. Looking forward to things getting a little bit more normal over time, and I really appreciate you guys hopping on this webinar with us today.